I'm Pat Dooris. Welcome to The Story. We're starting tonight in Salem because we have an update to our special report called Tainted Waters that focused on nitrates that are polluting a large aquifer in eastern Oregon. 69% of the problem, the pollution, comes from farms in the area. And there's one agency in Oregon that's in charge of those farms, the Department of Agriculture. Today, we're talking to the director. Hello, Director. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you.
Oh, yes. Lisa Charpelos-Hansen is the director of the Oregon Department of Agriculture. She runs a large department for the state with 398 employees and a 2-year budget of $157 million. Her agency operates across Oregon and includes wide-ranging responsibilities from food safety to animal health and livestock, lab services, even inspectors who check the gas pumps to make sure they're measuring your gallon correctly. They also run predator control programs and keep an eye on water quality when it comes to farming. And they oversee the agriculture industry in Oregon, promoting it while also regulating parts of it. The director brings extensive experience to the job.
I was the deputy.
Deputy, okay.
I was the deputy for 16 years. I actually was with the department for 25 years before I left in 2001 to go over and work at the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. And then had the opportunity to come back in the fall of 23.
She grew up on a farm and now lives on her own farm in Clackamas County. I'm here because I wanted to ask her about farmers in the Lower Umatilla Basin groundwater management area, also known as Lube Guama. It's an issue she knows well. She's been involved in it off and on for 25 years. But now she's in a unique position as director to force solutions if need be in a troubled area where a stubborn problem has grown for 3 decades. It's an area of eastern Oregon where tests show dangerous levels of nitrates have made it into well water that many residents rely on. The state has known about but not been able to fix the problem for more than 30 years. The people who live there are angry.
We shouldn't be suffering here with poisonous water, endangering our children, having health issues with them, or other people up here that have issues to have more issues on top with this water.
The largest sources of nitrates, 69% according to a state study, is from agricultural irrigation. Nitrates are found in fertilizer. It seeps into wells as farmers water their huge fields. That's what brought us to the Director of Agriculture. She told me 160,000 acres of land in the Lube Guama are irrigated. Half of those acres are controlled by permits that track how much water and nitrates are put on the land. But half is not.
And so for that second half then, is there anyone who keeps track of how much fertilizer they're putting on the ground, how much of it's going through?
That's a great question. There is not currently a tracking system for the fertilizer or agricultural practices there. I think the important thing to note in terms of Oregon's Ag Water Quality Program and the plans and the rules that go along with that is the basis of the plan is no pollution to groundwater or surface water from agricultural activities. There's a lot of diversity across the state, and there's a lot of diversity in the plans across the state because of the complexity of Oregon agriculture.
Okay. How do you think that's going in the Lube Guama?
That's a great question. I think, we all know that the Lube Guama was declared about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We've tried many different iterations, I think, of options with the committee there and looking at different practices, et cetera. And clearly, where we're at today, it hasn't yielded the results that we would have wanted to see in terms of reductions.
Yeah, the pollution's worse now.
You're right. It hasn't yielded the reductions in the nitrates in the water that we would have wanted to see.
So does more need to be done?
So I think we're at a really unique point in time with the work that you've done, with the work that the community has done, with the leadership of Governor Kotek in bringing people together to really look at this and say, yes, more needs to be done. We need to do more, we need to do better, and we need to work together collectively with everyone because it's a complex ecosystem and we all need to be part of the solution.
Farming is an economic backbone for these rural counties. The state regulators have spent years suggesting voluntary changes to help fix the problem, but have always stopped short of issuing mandatory requirements.
And I know that a study that was done quite a while ago pinned about 69% of the pollution in the aquifer on the farming practices, and yet there's been no mandatory changes in what happens there. How come?
So I think that's a fair question, and I think I referred to it earlier. We have been through iterations in the Lower Umatilla groundwater management area, working through different processes and different approaches. And like I said, it hasn't yielded the results that we would want to see in terms of lowering the nitrates. I think, again, space and time, and looking at it, we know we need to do something different. And right now, I think all options are on the table. ODA has already started to do some work in that area with very focused work. We have worked at doing a review of the water quality plans for the region. There's 2 of them.
Okay, but I can hear people in the audience saying, this is more study, study, study. It's been studied for 30 years. Why isn't this information already there? And when do we get to the action part?
I think we're really close to the action part. Yes, we've been looking at it for 30 years. We have not had an assessment. The 50% of agriculture that's irrigated ag, that's not under a permit, we don't have a registration system in place. We need to do more to understand what's going on, where it's happening, and how it's happening.
Yeah, why doesn't somebody require all the farmers to even just tell you what they're putting on the land and when?
So Oregon has a unique program with our agricultural water quality program, and in that there are 38 plans across the state to help with the diversity of Oregon agriculture and provide opportunities for how people meet the requirements of the plans.
We don't care about most of those. We just care about the Lugwama.
So ask me the question again.
Okay.
Let me think about this for a second.
It seems like an obvious starting point to somebody like me who doesn't know much about this, that a good starting point would say, all you farmers who are not required to have permits, you now need to start telling us how much and what you're putting on the fields, what fields and when. We're not going to tell you to cut back yet, but we want to know what's out there. Why can't you do that?
So that's a great description of one of the options that I think we are considering as you consider all the options on the table for how we move forward. We need to do work in the community with our partners, the state agencies, the federal agencies, the local community, to put a plan in place that'll work for that region.
And when will that happen, though?
We're in the process of that right now as we're doing the evaluation of the ag practices and the cropping in the community. And when we bring that together soon, we will continue to work toward the next steps and build the foundation for what that looks like.
And a lot of people mean different things when they say soon. Is that in a month, in a year, in 5 years?
I feel the urgency, and I know the urgency that's there in the community. When we were there last month in the community meeting, it was a really impactful opportunity in terms of hearing from community members and especially having conversations with community members afterwards.
The director went to Boardman in April, along with the director of the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, to meet with community members. Charpillos Hansen is sitting there on the end. She's pleased, she says, that the state is now delivering free, clean water to residents who know they have contaminated wells, and says more testing is needed. But she's clearly cautious about lowering the boom on farms, which researchers have said are a major part of that problem.
So all of the Lugwama plans so far have called for voluntary steps. Voluntary, voluntary, voluntary. Hasn't worked, hasn't worked, hasn't worked. Do you favor mandatory steps next?
So I think I would bring you back to the agricultural water quality program.
Kind of looking for a yes or no?
This is going to take a combination of actions to move it forward because of the diversity that's in the region.
So some mandatory, some voluntary?
Currently today, there is a requirement that is the basis of our agricultural water quality program that says agricultural activities can't pollute the water, groundwater or surface water or rivers and streams. Traditionally, we've focused on the surface water piece. This is the first time that we've had a strong focus on the groundwater, and so we really are learning from the work that we're doing with this assessment and building the foundation for that. I think, you know, all options are on the table as we look at what we do going forward, and any combination of regulation and incentive based, it's going to be tricky to figure out what's going to work so we can support not only cleaning up the environment, but also the socioeconomic basis of that community. Agriculture is the backbone of the community. It's what's grown that community in that region. Food processing is important in the region. And so we need to find that sustainability stool going forward.
Okay, because if you kill the economic engine, that doesn't help the people that live there either.
You're right. It's all interdependent. You know, we need to have the environmental piece addressed because it affects the people. We need to make sure that the people are taken care of and the community is sustained. And we need to assure that we have that ongoing economic viability because it's all related.
Charpillas Hansen says the Department of Agriculture has broad powers to regulate farms under agriculture water quality laws. And remember how she said she's been with the Ag Department for 25 years? Many of those years were spent working on this very issue. She senses a change is possible now.
The work that's been done recently in the community and the community being diligent about bringing this issue forward is incredibly impactful, and it has made a difference. It's made a huge, your work and your reporting has made a difference. It has put a spotlight on the issue. Yes, I worked on this in my career, and we've gone through many iterations working with the Groundwater Management Committee of trying things that have not yielded the ultimate outcomes that we want to see in terms of lowering the nitrates.
Was it frustrating earlier in your career trying to move the needle and seeing it not happen?
It has been challenging throughout my career in trying to figure out how you thread the needle on this with that sustainability stool, knowing that agriculture is the backbone of the community, food processing is a big part of that, and how you do the environmental protection. One, you take care of the people, but you still take care of that socioeconomic driver that's there.
So now you're in a unique position. That's something you've worked on for years. You're the director and maybe have more influence over it than you've ever had.
I am in a unique position today. It's a unique position to make a difference. It's a unique position to make a difference for the local community and the people that are impacted, and to try and work collaboratively to find something that works for everyone, including Oregon agriculture and the food processing community, so we don't lose the viability of that region.
Thanks so much to the director for taking the time to sit down with me and openly talk about the challenges of fixing things out there. My impression of her is that she really does want to bring change, and soon, but it's also clear from those extended comments in our interview that she's trying to bring the farmers along and get them to agree to changes instead of just forcing the change and then have everybody fight to stop it. I think that's why our show is unique. We can take the time to not just tell you what is or was not happening, but also get into the why. Personally, I still think it's a disgrace that the tainted water problem in Eastern Oregon has lasted 30 years and the problem's only gotten worse. We're going to stay on this one for a while. In the meantime, let me know what you're thinking about this, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Still to come on The Story, an update on a story we brought you last week on a lawsuit that alleges healthcare racism against a major hospital in the state of Washington. The suit had a hearing in court. We'll explain why lawyers for the hospital say the case should now be thrown out. That's coming up when the story returns. Now to an update to an investigation that we brought you last week. A Washington state family is suing Seattle Children's Hospital, alleging healthcare racism that led to the death of their 16-year-old daughter. A hearing on the case was held on Friday, and as Susanna Frame from our sister station reports, the hospital system argues this lawsuit should be thrown out.
And you can just take a seat.
Dr. Anna Patur and Nalini Ramesh arrived at King 5's sister station in Atlanta, where they're visiting family, to watch via Zoom a court hearing 2,500 miles away in Kent.
This lawsuit filed back in October of 2022.
They both wore buttons with the image of their deceased daughter, Sahana.
She is part of this case. It's Sahana fighting. She wouldn't want me to do anything otherwise. She would want me to pursue this all the way through, fight for her.
But in court, Seattle Children's fought to have their case dismissed, saying claims that the hospital engaged in discrimination based on race has no place in the lawsuit.
Nor can they contend that Sahana Ramesh's tragic death was an injury caused by race discrimination.
3.5 years ago, Sahana was active and healthy when a painful and itchy rash appeared all over her body. She ended up at the ER at Children's Hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with a rare disease called DRESS, a severe reaction to a medication. Last month, her parents described how badly their daughter suffered.
In the nights, I could not even, sleep. Just watching her, I remember she used to be so badly, feeling that I used to go in the night and say, don't worry, it'll get better.
Medical records show the parents worked hard to get their daughter help. They took her to the ER at Children's 3 more times. They called the hospital 16 times, and they emailed 22 times. Her mother wrote, "Should Sahana be admitted to the hospital to monitor her heart? Can you please help?" But Sahana was never admitted to the hospital.
He didn't seem to care.
Yeah.
Why? That is what I need to know. Why didn't you care?
At the start of 2021, Sahana collapsed and died in front of her family from heart failure. She was 16 years old.
Fell back. Within a minute or so, she died. But it was terrible to watch. Every day is difficult. Every day is a heavy lift for me.
At the exact same time, Children's was dealing with a crisis, allegations of racism from one of their top doctors. And Children's own experts agreed. They found the hospital was enabling and perpetuating systemic racism, treating black and brown children differently. Children like Sahana, the child of Indian immigrants.
Today, we are still fighting for her. If somewhere, by some chance, she's watching, she will know that her mother is fighting for her and she's here.
That was Susanna Frame reporting. In court papers, the hospital says the family has not provided any direct evidence that racism played a part in Sahana's care. The judge is expected to rule on the motion to dismiss the case this week. We'll let you know what happens. Up next now in the story, we're digging for old with the Oregon Historical Society. We'll tell you the story behind this urn, which was given to a man as a thank you by Oregon Governor Tom McCall. That's coming up next when the story returns. Digging for Old. In tonight's Digging for Old, we're going to show you an award from 50 years ago that few have ever seen before. It was given to a man to honor his idea that became a trailblazing Oregon law that continues to this day. Now, if you're imagining a shiny gold or silver medal or plaque, no, that's not exactly right. It's, well, shall we say, unique? Certainly one of a kind. Here's the executive director of the Oregon Historical Society, Carrie Timchuk, to explain.
So one of the most, influential and iconic pieces of Oregon legislation was the bottle bill, passed in the early 1970s by the Oregon legislature, requiring retailers to give money, deposits back if you brought in a pot bottle. And it was one of the pieces of legislation that helped give Oregon the environmental reputation, the green state, getting this pollution off the streets, all these bottles off the sides of the highways. It was the idea, as many things are, of one citizen, of an Oregonian named Richard Chambers, who lived in the Tillamook area. He came up with this idea, eventually became the law. And in early 1970s, 74, Mr. Chambers was near death. And Governor McCall, the governor, wanted to give him an award for his idea, for what he had done for Oregon. And this was the award that was given to Mr. Chambers by Governor McCall. And this was given to us by Mr. Chambers' daughter, Vicki Berger, who, as good fortune would have it, became a state legislator herself, representing the Salem area in the state legislature for many years. And Vicki recently donated this to us, wanted us to have for our collection, just as an example of, I think, an example of what the difference that one person can make. That Mr. Chambers came up with this idea, and it eventually became law, and inspired really an environmental movement. It looks to me like some sort of Grecian urn or something, but it's just a beautiful pot with a arrow on it here, and just better than a plaque, I guess. And thanks for this idea, and that helped make Oregon such an iconic environmental state.
I've read about Mr. Chambers. He really had to be persistent. He went through a lot of frustration until the government picked up on his idea, but I'm sure glad they did. When Oregon leaders passed the bottle bill in '71, it started as a litter control measure, first of its kind in the United States. Oregon continues to lead the nation when it comes to redemption of bottles and cans. Our redemption rate in 2022, 85.5%. The next closest state, Maine, at 78%. How about that? Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter is coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.